Hey, I'm Aria Johnson, your not-so-average 18-year-old senior from the suburbs of Chicago. Sure, I've got the grades 4.0 GPA, but what really sets me apart? My determination to get into Northwestern and study journalism. It's been my dream for as long as I can remember. Aria, have you finished that college essay yet? My mom, Linda, called from the kitchen one night. I glanced up from my laptop, eyes bleary. Almost done, just putting the final touches on it. My dad, George, popped his head in, grinning. That's my girl. Keep up the great work. They were supportive for sure, but sometimes I'd catch them sharing these strange, anxious glances when they thought I wasn't looking, like they knew something I didn't. Balancing school and my part-time job at Cafe Grind wasn't easy, but I powered through. College isn't cheap, and I was determined to make it. My best friend Tyler popped by the cafe one day and asked, "Yo, Aria, how's the college grind?" I rolled my eyes. I'm drowning in applications and essays, but I'm not giving up. That's why you're going to crush it. You've got this, he said with a grin. Later that week, my boyfriend Marcus surprised me at work. You look stressed, he said, leaning over the counter. Everything all right? Just the usual college panic, I sighed. Sometimes I wonder if it's even worth it. Marcus took my hand, his eyes softening. Are you kidding? You're the smartest person I know. Northwestern won't know what hit them. Their support meant everything. I had no idea how much I needed soon. It was a Thursday when everything changed. I came home to flashing lights and police cars parked outside. My heart dropped. Miss Johnson, an officer approached me, his face serious. There's been an accident. Your parents, they didn't make it. The world shattered around me. Just like that, they were gone. A weekend trip that ended in tragedy. The next few days were a blur of funeral arrangements and endless paperwork. I moved in with Aunt Sarah, who tried her best to be strong for both of us. Aria, honey, she said one night, her voice breaking. What about your college plans? I wiped away tears. I don't know, Aunt Sarah. But I can't give up now. Mom and Dad wouldn't want that. So I threw myself into applications, scholarships, and extra shifts at the cafe. Anything to keep my dream alive. You sure you're okay? Tyler asked one day at school. I nodded, unable to speak. Marcus was there too, always with a hug when I needed it. You're the strongest person I know, Aria. You've got this. But something gnawed at me, like there was more to my parents' story. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were hiding something, if only I knew how right I was. 2 years into Northwestern, and I was barely hanging on. Between classes, my job at the campus bookstore, and weekend shifts at Joe's Diner, I was running on fumes. Aria, you look like death warmed over, my roommate Zoe said one morning as I chugged my third cup of coffee. Thanks, I muttered. Just what every girl wants to hear. Kevin, my study buddy from journalism ethics, chimed in. You're going to burn out, Aria. Take a break. But I couldn't. Every time I thought about slowing down, I remembered my parents. They'd never see me graduate, and that kept me going, even when I was dead on my feet. Then came that night at Joe's. It was slow, just me and Eddie, the night cook. I was wiping down tables when the bell above the door jingled. Welcome to Joe's, I said automatically, turning around, and froze. Standing there, as if they hadn't been dead for years or my parents. I blinked, sure I was hallucinating. But no, it was them. Older, dressed differently, but unmistakably George and Linda Johnson. They didn't see me at first, too busy arguing in hushed tones as they ordered coffee to go. When they turned to leave, my dad's eyes met mine. He paled, grabbing my mom's arm. George, what's wrong? She asked, before following his gaze and spotting me. Oh my God. I finally found my voice. Mom? Dad? How are you alive? They bolted. I chased them into the parking lot, my mind reeling. Wait. Stop. How could you do this? My dad turned, his face stricken. Aria, we can explain. Explain faking your deaths, abandoning me. My mom stepped forward, her face filled with regret. We were in trouble, honey. Financial trouble. We thought this was the only way out. The only way out. I choked, my voice trembling with anger. Do you have any idea what you put me through? My dad shook his head, guilt etched across his features. We never meant for you to find out. We just wanted a fresh start. A fresh start? Without me? Tears streamed down my face. the weight of their betrayal sinking in. "I thought you were dead. I mourned you." They stammered out more excuses, but I couldn't hear them anymore. My mind was spinning as they hurried to their car and sped away, leaving me crumpled on the asphalt, my world shattered all over again. I fumbled for my phone and called Aunt Sarah, barely able to get the words out through my sobs. She rushed over and held me tightly as I wept. "I had suspicions," she admitted later, gently stroking my hair. "There were things that didn't add up, but I never had proof." I wiped my eyes. "What do we do now?" Aunt Sarah's gaze hardened. "We find out the truth. All of it." That's how we ended up hiring Jack, a no-nonsense private investigator with a reputation for uncovering even the deepest secrets. "It won't be easy," he warned us, his eyes serious. "People who go to these lengths to disappear cover their tracks well." "I don't care," I said firmly. "I need to know why they did this. Why they left me." Jack set off to dig into my parents' deception, while I tried to focus on school. But it was impossible. My entire life felt like a lie, and I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Weeks passed, and I barely slept. Then, one evening, Jack called with news. His voice was steady, but the words felt like a punch to the gut. "Your parents used forged death certificates," he explained. "They had help from a lawyer named Maxwell Green, a real shady character." I gripped the phone tighter. "Where are they now?" "They've been living in Evanston under the names Brian and Helen Carter," Jack continued. "Working odd jobs, keeping a low profile. They've been close this whole time." My stomach churned at the revelation. They'd been right under my nose. Aunt Sarah squeezed my hand. "Do you want to confront them?" I nodded, my throat tight. "I need answers." We arranged to meet at a park, neutral ground. When I saw them approach, nervous and older than I remembered, a flood of emotions hit me like a tidal wave. "Aria, sweetheart," my mom began. "Don't," I cut her off, my voice cold. "Just tell me why." My dad let out a heavy sigh. "We were in debt. Bad investments, credit cards. We felt trapped." "So you abandoned your daughter." Aunt Sarah's voice was ice. Mom's eyes filled with tears. "We thought you'd be better off without us dragging you down. We never wanted to hurt you." "Better off?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I was alone. I thought you were dead." "We're so sorry," my dad pleaded. "We know we can never make it right, but please, can you forgive us?" I stared at them, struggling to reconcile the people standing before me with the parents I had loved and lost. But they weren't the same. They were strangers now, wearing my parents' faces. "No," I whispered, my voice shaking. "I can't." As Aunt Sarah and I walked away, leaving them calling after us, I felt hollow. Like the last remnants of my past had crumbled into dust. The next few weeks were a blur. My grades plummeted. I couldn't focus, couldn't sleep. Everything felt meaningless. "Aria, is everything all right?" Dr. Patel, my academic advisor, asked during our meeting. The concern on her face was enough to break me. I broke down, telling her everything. She listened, her eyes filled with compassion. "I'm so sorry you're going through this," she said gently. "Let's work out a plan to get you back on track, okay?" With her help, I got extensions on my assignments and set up a study schedule. It wasn't easy, but it gave me something to focus on, something to keep me grounded as the rest of my life spiraled. My friends rallied around me too. Zoe and Kevin practically moved into our dorm, armed with junk food, bad movies, and endless support. They made me laugh, even when I felt like I never would again. I wasn't okay yet, but at least I wasn't alone. And for now, that was enough. "We've got your back, Aria," Zoe said one night as we huddled on my bed, her arm wrapped around my shoulder. "Whatever you need," Kevin added, nodding. "We're not going anywhere." Unlike some people I could mention, I managed a weak laugh. It felt good to know I wasn't alone, despite everything. Then my phone rang. It was Jack. "Aria, I found something else," he said, his voice grim. "Your parents, they've been involved in serious financial crimes. Tax evasion, insurance fraud." My heart sank. How bad are we talking? Bad enough for jail time if the authorities find out. I sat there in stunned silence. The weight of the revelation pressed down on me, the anger, the betrayal. Then a thought surfaced. What if someone tipped off the authorities? Anonymously? Jack paused. "That would definitely set things in motion. Are you sure that's what you want?" I hesitated, thinking of the sleepless nights, the tears, the lies, the life I had to rebuild on my own. The struggle, the pain, the loneliness. Yes, I said, finally, my voice steady. It's time they face the consequences. That night, I sent an anonymous email to the authorities detailing everything Jack had uncovered. As I hit send, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for sure. I was done being a victim of my parents' choices. It was time to take control of my own life. As graduation day approached, I poured myself into my work. Between classes and my internship at the Chicago Tribune, I barely had time to breathe, let alone think about my parents. "Aria, these articles are fantastic," my editor Jim said one afternoon. "Have you thought about staying on after graduation?" I blinked in surprise. "Are you offering me a job?" Jim grinned. "Entry level. But yes, you've got real talent, kid." I left the office that day feeling like I was walking on air. Finally, something was going right. Graduation day dawned bright and clear. As I donned my cap and gown, I felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. I'd made it, despite everything. "You ready for this, valedictorian?" Zoe asked, adjusting my tassel with a grin. I took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. As I waited to give my speech, I scanned the crowd. Aunt Sarah was there, beaming. So were Kevin and my other friends. But then my heart stopped. In the back row, I saw them, my parents. Before I could process their presence, there was a commotion. Two men in suits approached them, flashing badges. "George and Linda Johnson," one said. "You're under arrest for tax evasion and insurance fraud." I watched, stunned, as my parents were led away in handcuffs, protesting loudly. "Aria Johnson," the dean called. It was time for my speech. I approached the podium, my hands shaking slightly. "Fellow graduates, honored guests," I began, my voice steadying. "Today we celebrate not just our academic achievements, but our perseverance in the face of adversity." As I spoke about integrity and resilience, I felt the weight lifting off my shoulders. I was no longer defined by my parents' actions. I was my own person, forging my own path. After the ceremony, Aunt Sarah hugged me tightly. "I'm so proud of you, sweetie." In the weeks that followed, the full extent of my parents' crimes came to light. They were facing significant jail time and hefty fines. Maxwell Green, their shady lawyer, was disbarred. The insurance company they had defrauded came after them with a vengeance. Despite the closure, I still felt unsettled. That's why, when the Tribune offered to transfer me to their New York office, I jumped at the chance for a fresh start. "You sure about this?" Kevin asked as he helped me pack. I nodded. "I need a change of scenery. Besides, Aunt Sarah's moving there too for her new job." Zoe handed me a box. "Just promise you'll visit, okay?" New York was a whirlwind, new job, new apartment, new therapist to help me process everything. Slowly but surely, I started to heal. One day, my editor called me into his office. "Aria, that series you wrote on financial fraud? It's gone national. People are calling for reforms." I smiled, thinking of the anonymous sources I cultivated. People like me, affected by financial crimes. That's great news. As I left work that day, my phone buzzed with a news alert. George and Linda Johnson face additional charges for newly uncovered fraudulent schemes. I paused on the busy sidewalk, letting the information sink in. Then I put my phone away and kept walking. Their story wasn't my story anymore. I had my own path now, advocating for students struggling with college expenses, shining a light on financial crimes, building a life I could be proud of. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure. I was ready to face it head on, with integrity and strength. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had made me who I am. And you know what? I wouldn't change that for anything. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Johnson. I used to live in Chicago with my parents and my younger brother, Mark. We've always been a tight-knit family, and one thing we all treasure is an antique diamond necklace that's been passed down from our great-grandmother. It's a piece of our history, and we're all proud of it. But lately things have been off with Mark. Ever since he started dating Vanessa, he's been going overboard trying to impress her. Fancy dinners, designer clothes, you name it. It's like everything else in his life has taken a backseat. One night, I was relaxing in the living room when Mark walked in, dressed to the nines. "Heading out again?" I asked. "Yeah, taking Vanessa to that new sushi place downtown," he replied. I raised an eyebrow. "Did he just buy new sneakers yesterday?" He shrugged. So what? I work hard. I deserve to treat myself, and Vanessa. I muttered under my breath, but he ignored me and left. Feeling uneasy, I called my best friend Emily. I'm worried about Mark, I told her. He's spending money like there's no tomorrow. Maybe it's just a phase, Emily suggested, though I wasn't so sure. Something felt off. Later that night, Dad called the family into the living room. His face was pale, and Mom's eyes were red from crying. "I've got some news," Dad began, his voice shaky. "The doctor found something. I need treatment, and it's going to be expensive." The room fell silent. Then Mark broke the tension. "What about the necklace? We could sell it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Are you serious? That's our family heirloom." Mom shook her head firmly. "No, Mark, we're not selling it. It means too much." Trying to ease the tension, I offered, "I'll pick up extra work. We'll figure something out." But Mark just shrugged and went back to texting, completely unfazed. In the following weeks, I worked nonstop. But Mark continued living his high life, going out with Vanessa every night. Then one evening, I overheard him on the phone in the hallway. "Yeah, I know I need cash fast. Don't worry, I've got something valuable lined up." My stomach dropped. He couldn't be talking about the necklace, could he? Later, I confronted him. "Mark, what's going on? You've been acting really strange." "Mind your own business, Sarah," he snapped. "This family is my business," I shot back. "If you're in trouble." "I'm fine," he yelled, storming off. I stood there, a knot forming in my stomach. Something was seriously wrong, and I had a feeling our family was about to be thrown into chaos. Little did I know how right I was. After that, I couldn't shake the suspicion that Mark was up to something. His talk of needing money, the vague references to something valuable. It didn't take much to connect the dots. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I bought a small hidden camera and placed it in the living room, right near where we kept the necklace. Maybe it was overkill, but I was desperate. A few nights later, while I was working late, my phone buzzed with an alert. The camera had caught movement. I opened the app, and my heart nearly stopped. There was Mark in the middle of the night, taking pictures of the necklace and measuring it with a ruler. I couldn't sleep after that. The next morning, I rushed to check the necklace, and my worst fear was confirmed. It was gone. I replayed the footage, and there it was. Mark, pocketing the necklace at 2 a.m. I confronted him in the kitchen. "Where's the necklace, Mark?" He looked at me like I was crazy. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb. I saw you take it last night." His face flushed with anger. "You've been spying on me? What's wrong with you?" "What's wrong with me? You stole our family heirloom," I fired back. Mom walked in, looking confused. "What's going on?" Mark turned to her, playing innocent. "Sarah's lost it, Mom. She's accusing me of stealing the necklace." "Because you did. I have proof," I shouted. Mom looked between us, bewildered, as Dad entered the room. Soon the whole family was caught in a shouting match. Mark kept denying everything, calling me paranoid. "Why would I steal from my own family?" he yelled. "To impress your girlfriend, maybe," I snapped. But in the end, nothing was resolved. My parents didn't want to believe that Mark could do such a thing, and without showing them the footage, which would open a whole other can of worms, I couldn't prove it. I called Emily, nearly in tears. I need your help. Mark stole the necklace, I'm sure of it." "Oh my God, Sarah. What do you want me to do?" "Can you help me check pawn shops, jewelry stores? He must have sold it somewhere." Over the next few days, Emily and I called every pawn shop in Chicago, searching for the necklace. Finally, we got a hit. A shady place downtown remembered seeing a necklace that matched our description. The owner, Tony, agreed to meet us. When we arrived, his shop was exactly what I expected: small, rundown, and sketchy. Tell me, Ida's warily. "Yeah, I remember that piece. Beautiful antique. The kid who sold it seemed desperate." My heart raced. "How much did you give him for it?" I asked. Tony named a price that made me wince. It was way below the true value of the necklace. "Any chance you still have it?" Emily asked hopefully. Tommy shook his head. "Sold it to a collector already. Sorry, ladies." As we left, I spotted Mark across the street, standing next to a shiny new car with Vanessa hanging on his arm. My blood boiled as I overheard him bragging, "Check out my new ride." Family inheritance. Pretty sweet, huh? Vanessa squealed and hugged him. Oh my God, babe, it's amazing. I clenched my fists, piecing everything together. He'd sold our priceless family heirloom to buy that flashy car, just to impress her. I wanted to march over and expose him right then and there. But without solid proof, it would be my word against his. And right now, Mark had everyone fooled. Emily placed a hand on my shoulder. We'll figure this out, Sarah. He can't get away with this. I nodded, already forming a plan. Mark might think he's won, but he had no idea what was coming. This wasn't over, far from it. Determined to get to the bottom of things, I set up another meeting with Tony, this time alone. I know you already sold the necklace, I said, getting straight to the point. I'm not here to buy it back. I just need to know more about the sale. Tony looked uncomfortable. I don't usually talk about this stuff. I leaned in, lowering my voice. The guy who sold it, he's my brother. He stole it from our family. Tony's eyes widened. I had a feeling something was off with that kid, he muttered. After a long pause, he sighed and gave in. All right, I'll tell you what I know. Turns out, Mark had been practically begging Tony to buy the necklace, desperate for cash. Kept saying he needed the money fast, like his life depended on it, Tony said, shaking his head. Then, to my surprise, he pulled out some paperwork. Here's the sale record. I shouldn't be doing this, but family's important, you know? I thanked him, my mind racing. This was a huge break, but I needed more. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. A week later, the PI called me. Miss Johnson, you might want to sit down for this. What he told me made my blood run cold. Mark hadn't just stolen the necklace. He'd been embezzling from his workplace and opening credit cards in our parents' names, maxing them out. It was a web of lies and theft, and I was reeling. How could my own brother do this? That night, I overheard Mark and Vanessa arguing in the driveway. But babe, I thought we were going to Cancun next month, Vanessa whined. I just need a little more time to get the money together, Mark stammered. You always say that. What about that inheritance? Can't you just sell something else? She snapped. I clenched my fists, listening to Mark struggle to keep up his facade. I'm working on it, okay? Just give me some time, he pleaded. After Vanessa stormed off, I saw Mark pull out his phone and start Googling. How to sell house without owners knowing. My heart sank. He wouldn't, would he? I knew I had to act fast. Using a burner phone, I called his workplace. Hello, I have information about employee theft you might want to look into, I said, keeping my voice steady. Next, I contacted the credit card companies, anonymously reporting the fraudulent accounts. With every call, I felt a mix of relief and dread. The wheels were in motion, and Mark's house of cards was about to collapse. Not long after, my parents found out the truth. They were devastated, angry, heartbroken. We've lost so much, my father said quietly, barely able to look at me. Mark's trial came and went, and he received his punishment. Justice, as they say, took its course. As for Vanessa, she found another man to latch onto, wasting no time moving on. A part of me felt guilty. He was my brother, after all. But then I remembered the look on Mom's face when she realized the necklace was gone. Dad's stress over the mounting medical bills. And how Mark had lied to all of us without a second thought. No, he brought this on himself. Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. And in this case, the kindness was for the rest of my family. I went to bed that night knowing tomorrow everything would change. Mark's perfect little world was about to come crashing down, and honestly, I couldn't wait to see it happen. But that's the end of my story. Now, I've got a question for all of you. If you were in my shoes, would you have exposed your own brother's crimes? It's not an easy choice, balancing family loyalty with doing what's right. Was I justified in bringing Mark down, or should I have tried to handle it privately within the family? What would you have done differently? Do you think there's ever a point where someone's actions become unforgivable, even if they're family? Does Mark deserve a second chance, or was this level of betrayal too much to overcome? How would you have confronted him if you were me? And what about the law? Was it okay for me to break it by using a hidden camera to uncover a greater wrong? What do you think drove Mark to betray his family like this? Was it just greed, or something deeper? If you were in my parents' shoes, could you ever trust Mark again? Were there warning signs I missed, things that could have prevented this from spiraling out of control? Was selling the family heirloom the ultimate betrayal, or was it the fraud against our parents that crossed the line? How do you think this experience will affect our family in the long run? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. Thanks for following along with my story, and if you enjoyed it, stay tuned for more.